Hello and welcome to News Laundry Interviews. I'm Tanishka Sodhi and today we have with us Mr. John Brittas, a Rajya Sabha MP from Kerala. John is with the CPIM and was elected to the House last June. He's been a journalist by profession for over 30 years. He was the media advisor to the Kerala Chief Minister and the former business head of Asianet Communication. John is also the managing director of Kairali TV. Welcome, John. Thank you for doing this.
Hi, Tanishka.
Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, perfect.
So I'd just like to start off by telling our viewers that this is your second year in the House as an MP, but you have spent several years in the House covering it as a journalist. So what has this shift been like from one pillar of democracy to the other?
I mean, if it needs to be split in a physical way, I would say that I came from up to the down. So it was like falling to the floor. But obviously, to be part of the parliamentary discourse is something naturally, helps you in many ways and helps you to achieve your purpose also. So being a journalist, you had that role of an observer or somebody who needs to look into the things. Now, I'm a participant of the active democratic process, parliamentary debates, etc. So I feel that, I'm in a position to contribute much more than be a spectator. So that's the tangible difference between the two.
Has it also changed how you perceive the House?
No, honestly speaking, I have been always saying that the parliament which I used to cover, maybe late 80s or 90s, has undergone drastic changes. You don't see that parliament. It's a pale shadow of the parliament which used to be there. The quality of the debates have come down. The intensity of the parliamentary discourse have completely got eroded. The commitments of principal players also have got dented. So it seems that there is a lot of, I would say, deductions that has happened to the parliamentary process.
Is it true that you were the youngest journalist to get the Central Hall pass?
See, I started covering parliament at the age of 22, sharp 22. So the moment I completed 10 years, I was eligible to be a Central Hall pass holder. So I managed that Central Hall pass also. Even when I became a member of parliament, I had the Central Hall pass and the long and distinguished journalist pass in my pocket. So I walked into the house with an additional pass, that is a press pass.
But now journalists are barred from entering the Central Hall. You were one of the MPs who opposed this and said that there is a restriction on journalists. Do you think this is the case and there is an obvious trend of trying to isolate parliamentarians and the parliament from the media gaze?
See, I raised this matter at least 2 or 3 times on the floor of the House. I feel that there is a design. Schools are functioning, the markets are functioning, the multiplex are there, and the malls are there. But Corona is only for the parliament. And you won't see anybody there in the parliament house wearing a mask. I also don't wear it because the prime minister also does come there without a mask. Nobody is wearing a mask. But still, the so-called COVID restrictions, inverted comma, for the media continues. So it's a design, it's a decision to keep away the fourth pillar from the another pillar of the Indian democracy. And now only frugally the journalists are permitted, 1 or 2 journalists. And if you look up to the galleries, you would feel like mourning for the media here. Hardly anybody is there. And people depend only on censored TV. That means only a view is being disseminated. That's the idea behind that. And I recollect those days when Parliament Central Hall used to be a place where people used to sit together, exchange, even the Prime Minister, Cabinet Ministers, ex-MPs. Most of the political formulations used to, spring up from Central Hall. Now, even the senior journalists are barred from the Central Hall. And I think the very purpose of, the fourth pillar is in question. And I don't see much protest from the media barons or the media managements. They're very happy with it. Or rather, they are paranoid or afraid to raise it up. And my feeling is that, or rather my input is that, the new parliament building that is just going to be commissioned maybe in a few months' time, that may not even have a parliament center hall.
So you had mentioned the LND pass. I believe in December you had written saying that you would like to retain that pass, and if you would like to use that even more than your MP pass, even though that gives you access to everything. Could you explain why that was the case?
No, I had a logic. I said that, you see, journalism is my base profession, core profession. I need to continue to be a journalist. Because advocates, doctors, businessmen, everybody can practice their profession even while they are member of parliament.
Right.
So a journalist by profession cannot be barred with his professional facility. That was my logic. And I think there is enough logic in my argument. But they haven't taken a conclusive view of that, because they came up with certain arguments saying that you have a superior RF tag as a member of parliament at the radio frequency. So having an inferior one, how it is going to affect? These were the questions raised.
Right. So for a lot of people, John, it's important to keep their journalism and their politics separate. But for you, it's always been connected. Your first job as a journalist was also with the CPIM mouthpiece. Could you explain how that happened and whether it's ever been an issue for you that you've wanted to separate these two entities?
Rather, I would say that the biggest issue which the journalists are facing, or the journalism of today is facing, is that lack of politics. People becoming apolitical. See, politics and journalism have been always interconnected, intensely. The best journalist India has produced is none other than Mahatma Gandhi. And just like the Oscar, any journalist in the world aspire to get a Pulitzer Prize. See, what is Pulitzer Prize? It's the name of a politician, Democratic Party leader who was a member of the American Congress, Joseph Pulitzer. Now the biggest issue with journalism is that they are all apolitical. What is political? Being committed to your society, your surroundings. Being concerned about your fellow being, that is politics. And think about a situation where you don't have any idea about the society that you live in. How can you perform your duty as a journalist? Absolutely no. All the media organizations in India sprang up as part of the freedom movement. Politics is not something where you are going to concoct something or something, it's conspire against something. No. It's to give you an additional window to see the world. So I always say that I have politics. Politics gives me that perspective, that long vision. So it's not, I would say, contradictory, it is complementary.
Right. It gives you a lens.
Naturally.
So in your 1 year in the parliament, you've been a very active parliamentarian. Your attendance...
I don't know. That's an attribute which you gave to me.
Your attendance in the House is 91%. You've participated in 157 debates when the national average is around 25. You've asked more than 180 questions when the national average here is around 65. You've also introduced private member bills. So this is why I would say that you've been a very active parliamentarian. But there is a trend that when MPs do first come in the House, they are active and then slowly it starts to fade. How do you plan on keeping this streak going?
I would say, I can't use the word I am an active parliamentarian, but I would say I'm committed. And I intend to take it seriously. And I think that, you see, we need to do a lot of homework. And you need to take your... this opportunity very seriously. This much I can say that. And there are a lot of avenues in which you can work. Though the standard of the parliamentary democracy has depleted, there are still a lot of avenues for MPs like us to, maneuver. For example, as you rightly said, I introduced two private member bills. These two bills have a substance in them. In the sense it is to, enrich the federalism that the Constitution naturally talks about it. One is that if the centre is going to legislate on a concurrent list, item in the concurrent list, it needs to take the consent of more than 50% of the states. Second is that if the centre is going to sell off a central public sector situated in a state, and if the state has contributed to it, naturally the pro rata value which you fetch from the sale has to be given to the state government. So these are all federal principles, and there is a over-concentration of power that is happening. From a federal constitution, it is fast going to be a unitary constitution. So these are all, pieces of legislation or bills which are to work as deterrents for this trend of concentration of power.
Your maiden speech in the House made quite a stir. It was about the Indian judiciary, the lack of diversity, the Brahminical representation, and you criticized the system of how judges appoint judges and how this is not the case anywhere else in the world, and also about the erosion of the independence of the judiciary. Vice President Naidu congratulated you on this and praised this. He also mentioned that he was surprised that this speech was completely missing from national media the days after you made the speech. Why do you think that was the case? I mean, do you think this points towards sort of the disproportionate weightage that the media gives to Congress versus other opposition parties?
Your question has three parts. First part I can answer. The second part Naidu has to answer. Third part the media has to answer.
Okay.
But since you have asked the question, I would take it on myself. See, I would say, I could make an effective speech on judiciary, the status of judiciary. I'm glad that a lot of people are talking about that. Even judges have called me up and said that what you said is right. Because in a country with 130 crore people or plus, you don't get a judge from a backward community, from a Dalit community, from a minority community. You don't get it.
Yeah.
So, can anybody believe that? This is a country with 130 crore people. The backwards had to, wait till late 80s to get a representation in Supreme Court. If somebody else, learn about that, they would be completely shocked to learn about. And the diversity of this country has to reflect everywhere, whether it is in executive or legislator or judiciary or even media. This is my point. And the so-called judges, picking up judges, it's unheard in the history. Nowhere it exists. You are just, if a fourth, class employee need to be appointed, there is a process to it. There is a process. Here there is no process. You don't even know how a judge is appointed. It's completely I would say, one-sided action. So that's what I questioned. And I think, but the government also finds it very convenient because you can flex your muscles. So you can have your choices underlined by the collegium. And see, now you have reached a situation whereby even a legal luminary like Kapil Sibal saying that he has lost faith in judiciary. That's the situation. So something has to be done drastically so that, and a democracy can survive, I would tell you, not because of the benevolence of an executive or because of the dynamism of a legislature, but only with the active participation of judiciary and media. If these two components, verticals, cave in, democracy is gone.
So the second part of my question was, why do you think that the media missed out on this?
Media has been missing out on such things for a long time. See, in a farewell to Sri Venkaiah Naidu, I spoke about what Venkaiah Naidu told about my speech. And he was so sad that none of the media reported it. Then I told the House of Study, actually, what Venkaiah ji said was a perfect indictment of the media, present-day media, which is completely engrossed, indulgent in trivia, sensationalism, and frivolous. Media has been like that. I've done pretty good research in media, how the media standard has gone down. See, the newspaper must have become glossy in color, but the content has eroded. You pick up two newspapers, say 30 years back and now, see, it would be a pale shadow of the previous newspaper. What is that you have to read in the present-day newspaper? Earlier we had page 3. Now the page 3 is the page 1. And even the Chief Justice had to comment about the media, saying that the investigative journalism has absolutely disappeared from Indian media. Now the best investigative piece that appears in Indian media is an interview of a minister.
You had mentioned how the parliament has changed from when you were covering it to now. But what about how the media covers the parliament? Do you think that, like I said, do you think that media ends up giving disproportionate weightage to the Congress compared to other oppositions, or even the ruling party compared to smaller opposition parties?
Now, I would say, see, I will place that answer like this. When I was covering the parliament, maybe 3 decades back, the parliament and the media were intrinsically linked. That much I can say.
Yeah.
Every day in the morning, you would have a investigative story about a scam or a corruption in the government. And this used to be raised on the floor of the house. So there was a perfect sync between the media and the parliament. Now there is a mass disconnect that has happened. Right. Media is not interested. Second, the parliament also is not interested. So both these organs, I won't call it organs, but the pillars have become little passive. And Congress getting prominence over other, and we should also understand that the Delhi media sometimes forgets the fact that India is such a diverse country. And me being part of the media, I would say that the new slogan for us is that regional is national. But the media hasn't realized that. Media still thinks that everything revolving around Delhi is national. Yeah. No, national is outside Delhi. We call it regional is new national.
Let's talk about Pegasus. You moved the Supreme Court to seek a court-monitored probe. As per some media reports, the committee did submit the report last week, and they said that they did not find any evidence that the spyware was used to snoop on the phones that it studied. Is that the case? What do you think about this? And do you think that as a country, we did not take this issue as seriously as we should have?
See, I moved the Supreme Court because there was a basis, substantive reason for that. Because all the reliable reports on that substantiate the fact that there was spying that has happened, or this spyware was used. But I won't blame a committee if at all. I have not seen the report, and only certain things have trickled down as to what the report must have said about it. But I would say that it's very difficult to understand, because these are all spywares which are modern, can be just, wiped off. See, it enters your phone after covering, or rather, doing its duty, it just disappears. So this sort of modern spyware and malwares, how is it that a committee is going to, understand it? And when the state is not cooperating with an inquiry, nothing can happen. Who ordered it, how it was operated, will the officers depose before the committee? If at all they have deposed, what they say? They will always deny that. So I won't blame a committee, assuming that if at all they have not, substantiated any of the charges. But the fact is a fact. We are all watched. And I am part of the IT Standing Committee. We haven't discussed about that. The government has been saying it's a sub judice matter. So even that is an alibi.
But what was your motive behind moving the Supreme Court?
Naturally, to protect the privacy of the citizen. It's a fundamental right according to the Supreme Court in Puttaswamy case 2017. And the moment you loses your privacy, the democratic process is gone.
So you're a member of the Committee on Communications and Information Technology. A report was presented by the committee in December regarding ethical standards in media coverage. It also touched upon TRP manipulation and how there needs to be a more transparent system. But what are the more tangible ways that this can be done? Because none of the recommendations were very immediate or tangible.
No. There was one cardinal recommendation, because I was instrumental in incorporating that. We said, look, India had, see, the media has changed. First of all, what is media? Even a definition is very difficult. Whether print is a media, radio is a media, television is a media, telephone is a media. I don't know, because you are covering this with an iPhone. I could have imagined maybe 2 years or 3 years back. No, absolutely no. The media has changed. And who is a journalist? We can't say. Anybody on the road could be a journalist. Somebody takes a WhatsApp, triggers it WhatsApp. The circulation of that WhatsApp would be more than the Times of India, right? Perfect. So the media space has changed drastically. The definitions have become obsolete. We had two media press commissions, first press commission and second press commissions in India. So I have recommended, or the committee has recommended, I would say rather, the government set up a media commission to study the whole gamut of issues, including self-regulation, and to see I mean, experts on different fields of different media verticals needs to be there. Let us understand what should be done. That's the whole point of it. And if the government acts on it, naturally we will get a document which would serve as a Magna Carta or a constitution for the future discourse of the media.
But there's been no word so far whether
So far, no.
this
Government hasn't
recommendation will be
responded.
taken in. So over 47 hours of productive time were lost in the monsoon session in the Rajya Sabha this time due to interruptions and protests. Of course, dissent is very important in a democracy, but do you think that these disruptions and protests during the sessions end up affecting the productivity? Is there a more effective way to practice this dissent?
I don't subscribe to this so-called very conservative view or rather a very, I would say, capacitor view of productivity. If the session functions properly, dole out a lot of bills as legislations, is it productive? No. How the parliament is effective in manifesting or rather in having the expression of the people, that is more important. Legislations, when you are passing it, needs to be with due deliberations, discourses at different levels. So the parliament is not doing that. This continued disruptions, whether we need to have continued disruptions, that we need to ponder over. But I would say the primary mover for that should be the government. See, what has happened now is that simple. We should diagnose the real reason for this. The government of India is not sincere regarding its intentions to the functioning of the parliament. They don't want the parliament to function. That is the real reason for this. Unless the government's approach changes. Adjournment motion 267. See, I am coming from Kerala. There have been numerous adjournment motions admitted by the government so that people can discuss. Here, in 5-6 years' time, not even a single adjournment motion in, I would say, 267, where we suspend all business and discuss an important point. That is the 267. That has not been permitted in Rajya Sabha for last 5 years. And earlier, 60-70% of the bill used to be referred to the standing committee for due deliberation. Now, after the BJP came to power, it's hardly 10-15%. So the productivity, I think this is a humbug which the mainstream media talks about, and they don't even realize what is it actually. They think that, you see, I should sit in the house as a student and whatever the bills are being brought forward, I should just sign on it. The productivity should increase. It's not a factory. Is it a factory parliament?
You had a private members resolution that was listed last week. Could you tell us about the resolution and what happens to it now? No,
the resolution was basically to rehabilitate those people who are coming back from foreign countries. Our migrants who are working elsewhere.
Right.
See, India, we want their foreign remittance. We want, dollar, dirham, everything. And they contribute richly to the GDP. But not even a single scheme for Indian diaspora which is coming back from the foreign countries. So my resolution was that to have a rehabilitation package for those people who have toiled for the betterment of this country, who have contributed valuable foreign exchange. This was my resolution. Unfortunately, I don't know, usually even if the house is disrupted, the private member business, that is from 2:30 p.m. Friday till 5 o'clock, it used to be unhindered. But that day, I don't know what was the reason for that. That private member resolution also was scrapped. So technically, since the house has come to an end, that has become, I would say, it has lapsed. So I need to try my luck again because this is something like running in the Olympics. You have to try hard again.
So this session, 23 MPs were suspended from the Rajya Sabha. There were also ED summons, there were a lot of protests. A lot of this is unprecedented in a way, for example, the number of people who were suspended. Could you just tell us what the atmosphere of the House was like this session?
See, I'll tell you one thing. I think the government's target was to suspend 75 MPs. Because this is 75th anniversary of the democracy. So they couldn't accomplish it for reasons well known to them. See, suspending a member is the reason. What is that the opposition is asking for? Let the government come and discuss an issue which they want. Simple as that. We are not demanding that you see somebody's head has to be chopped and kept there. No, absolutely. Did we ask anything on the platter? No. Discuss people's issues. Don't shy away from that. Why are they not doing it? Why are they not doing it? Why do they want to bulldoze it? There was a time when prime ministers used to sit in the house. Now think about the presence of our senior members or even the prime minister. How much time do they spare for these parliamentary things? See, what is the premise of the parliamentary democracy? See, I am a student of political science. Executive accountable to the legislature, parliament. That is the basis of this government. That's the basis of the constitution. Do you see any accountability on the part of the executive with regard to the parliament? Absolutely no. So our grouse has been that. And think about the opposition leader is summoned when the parliament is in session. He is the one who has to pilot the people's issues on the floor of the house. He is being summoned by the ED when the parliament is in session. Can you think about such a situation? Don't you think these are all provocations, instigations to disrupt the parliament deliberately?
So you've asked more than 180 questions in the House, but I think around 7 of them have been pertaining to the media. Do you think it's fair for people to expect you to raise more questions related to the media? Do you have plans on doing the same?
I do. See, I'll tell you one thing. A member is entitled to ask, put in at least 7 questions a day. I mean, when the parliament is in session, suppose it's a 20-day session, I can put in 7 questions. Maximum is 7 questions. But the lot is there. I may get 3 questions, 4 questions, 2 questions. But I always make it a point that I upload 7 questions. So if I am lucky, I'll get 2 questions, 3 questions, 4 questions. Because that is the most pivotal point on which the accountability can be established. So I don't want to waste that opportunity because that's my right as a member to make sure the minister respond. And I will tell you one thing, on a question, I have few questions, I didn't get a satisfactory answer. I chased them and I complained to the Honorable Chairman saying that I didn't get satisfactory reply from the ministers. The Chairman agreed with me and sent my complaints to the respective ministries, directing them to give proper replies.
Could you tell us what these questions were?
There was a railway project, that is NEM terminal project in Kerala. It was announced in 2011 budget, 10 years back. And the foundation stone was laid in 2019, hurriedly on the eve of the elections by the then Railway Minister Piyush Goyal, thinking that they can get Trivandrum constituency on their lap. After 3 years, I have been chasing. What has happened to that? They said DPR is under consideration. DPR is under consideration. Detailed project report is under consideration. That's a ditto reply you used to get. I complained. I said, look, I want when the project is going to be started. Why is the delay? Then the chairman said there is a logic in my question. Then it was sent and the railway ministry reluctantly said that they have decided to shelve the project. I said, okay, you reply to us. Now there is a political hangama. Delegations after delegations are coming from BJP to impress upon the minister that it's very crucial for their survival in Kerala. Fair enough.
So, like in your speech, your maiden speech, you had spoken about the lack of diversity in the Indian judiciary. Do you think that Indian newsrooms are fairly represented?
Absolutely no. Just like judiciary, the media also doesn't have any representation.
And the polarization that you spoke about that we see on the TV screen so often, do you think that's a reflection of society, or in a way the media is also over emphasizing?
Media, I would say the mainstream media is hand in glove with the political masters. So his master's voice. Can you see any television channel now, except maybe there is an exception like Indie TV? See, there are chorus. When the Numbur Sharma issue came up, we blamed Numbur Sharma. Who created Numbur Sharma? The newsrooms. I wrote a piece in Indian Express saying that, see, the reason for such Numbur Sharmas need to be discussed. The culpability of media needs to be debated. They should not be exonerated. That's what I asked. Is there anybody to have a check and balance in this country? Think about how we do polarization. See, is there a country where 20 crores of people are not represented anywhere? Have you seen any representation for 20 crores people in the executive here? Think about the judiciary, think about the media. What is the representation in the legislature? Can you envisage a system whereby a democratic process when 20 crores people do not have an effective voting right? This is a country we need to discuss about that. So, media is, I won't say culpable, it's more than that. They're part of the crime. It's not that they are aiding it, they're part of it. They are the reason.
But taking the case of Siddiqui Kappan or other such journalists, what is your party doing for journalists like him?
So we have been trying our level best, actually. I mean, a lot of campaigns have been done. But since it's a case with the Supreme Court, and even the Supreme Court is not, doing anything. On the one count, they say that, the bail should be the norm, jail should be an exception. But and there are a lot of draconian laws also. See the UAPA that is being misused. There was a question in Rajya Sabha. I tried to ask the minister, but it was disallowed. Then when we came out, we were having a discussion with the Minister of State for Home, Nityananda Rai. He was telling me, look, we don't misuse. I said, look, what is hardly less than 10% of conviction happens here. Less than 10% in UAP cases. In certain states, it's 2%. The number of UAP cases have gone up drastically in states like Uttar Pradesh. Drastically. Because they think that, they are not interested in a trial or some sort of a adjudication. They are only interested to, penalize people, put them behind the bars. That is what they intend. Since it is possible because of the peculiar clauses that are there in UAPA, they are happy with that. So this is the rampant misuse that is happening in this country.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, Tanishka. It has been a wonderful time.